What's going on, guys? It's your boy Anthony back with another edition of the Fourth Man. Welcome to another episode. Appreciate everyone who's tuning in. And we are recording after the conclusion of the 2022 BIG3 draft. Our teams are now set. We know how we're entering the summers. We know how the teams look entering the summers. And we're going to break it down all here, along with a awesome dope interview with one of the top draftees in the draft class recently on the back end here. So super excited to talk about all the teams. I don't know if I'm ready to necessarily give power rankings yet. I feel like I'm still doing a little bit of research and obviously digesting. Sometimes there's not guys you're mostly familiar with, but dudes that got a lot of game, right? So I'm still trying to do my research and figure that out. It's even more tough because all these teams look really good. It's going to be hard to place someone at 12, but then even more so harder to place someone in the top 4 for those teams that are going to be playing in Miami for the championship. So we'll get into all the teams. I'll kind of recap the draft for you guys, as well as give you an idea of what the teams look like. And then we'll get to our interview. But before we get into all that, as always, if you want to find the show on social media at Fourth Man Pod on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and maybe throughout the season, we'll try to get into some TikToks. Not sure yet, but one of these days I'll catch on to something that's trendy and actually going on. If you want to watch the show, you can always watch it on youtube.com/fourthmanpod. Also there, you can check out a recap of the live stream that we did. We had Dante Green on, co-captain of Killer Threes, co-captain of Ghost Ballers, Mike Taylor, Craig Smith on there, who was one of the Big 3 draft or Big 3 prospects and a Big 3 veteran, former top 5 scorer in the league back in 2019. So a really good time on there if you want to get some analysis and reaction from that guys who actually play in this league and guys who actually know some of these guys a little bit better than maybe I do, or maybe you do as well. I would definitely recommend checking that out. Hopefully come with some other YouTube content here soon as well. I've been talking about video. The videos never came. Need to hold myself accountable. I'm sorry there. I kept trying to put it out and I kept just not being proud of the work. I didn't think it was there yet. I didn't want to just push something out just to push something out. But hopefully I can come up with some good stuff here, go to some games, maybe showcase what the events look like live. I mean, behind the scenes, potentially, if I get lucky, fingers crossed there. So make sure you're subscribed, turn on the notification bells, if anything, because we'll obviously have all the episodes on there, along with some cool interviews coming along the way with a lot of the guys who were just drafted, including on today's show. And then, as always, appreciate the guys over at Dash Radio and the Nothing But Net channel for streaming and giving us a platform every Saturday and Monday. So let's dive into it. I think it's important to set kind of the stage and the foundation of maybe the biggest topic of the night, outside of obviously the number 1 pick. That's probably the most exciting things, or the one thing people are waiting for, along with the rest of the picks. But the number 1 pick is obviously the most talked about headline there. But I think the other headline tonight and the draft that we had was that Three-Headed Monsters will have a new co-captain going into the 2022 season. Three-Headed Monsters ended up taking Jonathan Simmons from the draft and promoting him to co-captain after it was announced that Reggie Evans was going to be out for the season with a hand injury. Huge loss for the Three-Headed Monsters. They're a team that has never missed the playoffs. They're also going into the season with a new head coach. Originally, when I heard this news that Jonathan Simmons was being promoted, I thought it was going to be from Mahmoud. Of course, Ageless Wonder is definitely not the guy who has been injured or going to take this year off. Instead, Reggie Evans, apparently he was working out or getting ready for the season, or maybe just playing in some pickups and ended up hurting his hand. You know, the season's kind of short, so won't be returning, unfortunately. And Three-Headed Monsters ended up picking up one of the better players in the draft in Jonathan Simmons. So pretty wild there to start. I know there was a lot of guys talking about him potentially going in the top 3, if anything, the first round, if he slipped all the way down to the bottom of the first round, because sometimes, you know, if they don't see guys for a while, they might not necessarily want to take a high risk on them, but definitely was not going to make it out of the first round. And Three-Headed Monsters didn't have a pick till 12. And ended up getting fortunate there. As fortunate as you can get, right? Losing Reggie Evans, who I consider probably the best big man in probably league history. losing him to a hand injury, it's tough. I know for him, it's probably tough, but if you follow him on social media, you see how hard he grinds, how hard he works for this every single year. And he's been inches away from winning a BIG3 championship last year. And so devastating news. Get well soon, Reggie. Hope you're continue to rehab. And he already announced that he's planning to coming back next year. But Jonathan Simmons going to have to hold it down in his first year. Big load on him. It's going to be interesting. It kind of definitely, I'm not obviously giving power rankings just yet, but personally, I think it makes you look at three-headed monsters and kind of second guess where they would be. Will they make the playoffs again? No Gary Payton at the helm. Obviously, Reggie Theus is a good coach, but they've been able to make the playoffs every year. And, Reggie Evans wasn't a part of that team the first season. He was with Killer Threes, but man, what a consistent, solid, game changer Reggie Evans has been year in and year out. So to lose him before the year even starts, tough, very tough. We'll talk about the rest of the three-headed monsters team. I think they had the last pick of the whole draft. So I want to start with the team who had the first pick of the draft, and that was Power. And Nancy Lieberman made the selection. They went with Glenn Rice Jr. As the number 1 overall pick. Congrats to Glenn. Pretty cool to that he's going to be in there. Power also had a selection in the second round. It was the 5th pick of the second round, and one of the few picks I personally got right from the mock draft that we did ended up being TJ Klein, the son of Nancy Lieberman. So I think that was maybe the only one I got completely accurate. I think I picked another player to go to a team, but TJ Klein, Glenn Rice Jr. added to the trio of captains, and Mobley, the captain, Royce White as the co-captain, and then Nicholas. Still gonna have to work on this last name. I'm struggling to do so. I'm gonna get it right. Schizophily. Nicholas Schizophily. Apologize if I'm saying that wrong and you're listening to this, Nicholas, but I'm working on it. I've heard it pronounced a few times. I almost said twice. I've heard it pronounced a few times, and I still can't seem to get it to roll off the tongue. So Nicholas Schizophily will be the other co-captain there, alongside Glenn Rice and TJ Klein. It's an interesting makeup of a team, right? I think a lot of the team every year for Power and their success depends on the health of Katina Mobley. In years past, when Katina has been hurt, even when they won the championship, they've had the reinforcements, the leadership, the guys that are going to fit into the culture to be able to make up for maybe any games that he might miss out on. But in recent years, he's definitely had to take on a little bit more of the load. And unfortunately, he said he's faced some injuries within there. Obviously, Power as a whole has faced some injuries. So bringing in Glenn Rice Jr., who's a big guard, absolute bucket. He's got some crazy highlights on YouTube. Obviously, some NBA experience. And then bringing in a 6'9" wing and TJ Klein, who's a younger guy, 27 years old. I think that this team needs to get a little bit younger. I think that helps. And a versatile wing. I think 2 guys that could be very impactful players. I don't know too much about TJ Klein. He was recently playing for the Capital City Go-Go and played in Israel, but Kat obviously raved about him and had good things to say. He's got a high IQ, being a coach's son, which was reiterated time and time over the draft. So interesting makeup. And I'm just going to say Nicholas had a really good combine, from what I was watching, the times I was able to watch him, he looked really good. Obviously he's a former top 5 pick, and there was a lot of high praise for him back in the early 2000s, but this is an interesting team. See, these are the tough decisions I'm trying to make and figuring out like where does this team stack up? Like right now for me, I got us like just rough draft of it. I'm thinking like middle of the pack, got a lot of impactful pieces. How do they mesh together? I don't know. I know that somehow how they will, based off Nancy being the coach. But I think a lot of success will depend on the health of the team, especially at the top with Katina Mobley. And then what kind of impact are we going to see from Glenn Rice Jr. right off the bat? I think TJ Klein will play his role, play where he's needed, do what he's needed to do for the better of the team. I think Glenn Rice Jr. has probably a big target on his back from the rest of the league, being that number 1 pick, but also too, he's got they have high expectations for him. I think the team came together, knew they wanted. I think he can be very impactful, but a lot of the success of Power, I think, will come down to the health of Katina Mobley and the instant impact of Glenn Rice Jr. So we'll see. Everybody on our live stream was pretty shocked by the pick. We thought it was going to be like Darnell Jackson. Who else was the other guy that we thought it was going to be? I think Dante mentioned Ty Lawson as a potential pick if they wanted to go splashy play, but I think I've been saying this leading up to it. You never know which direction Nancy Lieberman's thinking. Obviously, she got some input from the team, and they went Glenn Rice Jr., a guy that we thought would go in this draft, just not at number 1. So Power goes with those 2 guys. The number 2 pick was held by Aliens, and Aliens was also another team that we weren't sure how they were evaluating or what guys they were looking at. They end up going to Deshawn Stephens with the number 2 pick, and they go with Adam Drexler in the 2nd round of the 4th pick. So the commissioner's son there. This is an interesting one. And just, I guess, to give a quick heads up, the interview on the back end is with Aliens pick Deshawn Stephens, the number 2 pick in the 2022 BIG3 draft. And really cool dude, a guy who is coming off a season in Europe, coming back recently as recording this video, and seems hungry to play stateside. He's had a really successful career in Europe, still has a successful career in Europe, and I think he's hungry to play stateside and prove something. A guy that was in the draft pool last year and didn't get a chance to go to the combine, and never really gets a chance to go to the combine because he's playing overseas. But based off, what Dante said, that it was going to be their pick, it seems like he was a strong commodity, or a guy that people were looking at, or more teams were looking at than just Aliens and Killer Threes, right? So Deshawn Stephens, 6'8", 6'9", going to bring that physicality. I mentioned this in our conversation with Deshawn Stephens, but Doosan had a really good season with Power last year, right? He's not the captain of Aliens, had a really good season in his first year with Power. First couple of games, there was a little bit of adjustment period, the physicality of the game in comparison to FIBA. Now, I think Thomas Ivasev looks like a physical guy already in FIBA. And Carlos Las Manas is a young, high flyer, lengthy bucket. There's so many ways to be able to describe him, but he's a jack of all trades, versatile guy, and one of the top players in FIBA and top players in the 2020 Olympics. But I think that being said, there could still be a little bit of an adjustment period. So you bring in a guy like Stephens, who's going to kind of be that physical bruiser and set the tone maybe for this team as they make that adjustment from what they're used to. And so I think it's a really good pick. They have a lot of size, a lot of versatility on this team. If you think about it, outside of Doosan, everybody's like 6'6" and taller. Adam Drexler is 6'6", John Stephens like 6'8", 6'9", Ivasev 6'9", Carlos Las Manas 6'7", 6'8". So this is a really lengthy team, a really experienced team in the 3-on-3 world. And then you bring in the fact that Deshaun's been playing European style basketball his whole career since he came out of college, and now he's going to be meshing with these other guys who want to bring that European flair, as Doosan mentioned it. Add in the fact that you have Adam Drexler, another versatile wing. I don't know too much about his game. He looked pretty good at the combine from a couple of people I spoke to, which could have led to that decision. I think Rick Mahorn was only representative of Aliens there, but Adam Drexler, son of Clyde the Glide, a lot of length in this team and a lot of versatility, and bring that different style of play, the European flair, that experience. So Aliens, another team that's really hard to really fit into the power rankings because first thought is because they do have all this experience and so much success playing in 3-on-3, the FIBA style of play. I want to put them in the top 4. You just added, two strong pieces to the equation. Defensive-minded, lengthy, versatile guy in Deshawn Stephens, and then another 6'6" wing who it's like he can get to the cup pretty well. I'm sure he's got some bunnies based off who his father is. I know they're not the same, but probably inherited some of that. But should be another important piece as well. Like you want to put him in the top 4 and say this might be their first playoff berth. You just don't know. Just don't know. That's why I'm still thinking about it. Number 3 pick was made by Ghost Ballers, and they picked Darnell Jackson at number 3, who we thought could have gone 1 and 2. And then they also had the 11th pick in the second round, and they picked Jermaine Taylor, one of 2 teams, I believe, to pick 2 guys that both had big 3 experience. I really like these picks. Darnell Jackson had a really good season with Power. Another guy that had a really good season with Power. I thought he had a really good chemistry and relationship with Doosan last year. Playing with Power, I thought Aliens was going to pick him. They went a different route. Nonetheless, Ghost Ballers landed kind of an early steal. And he's going to be a great player to offset another skilled big that Ghost Ballers has in their co-captain, Chris Johnson. And I think you look at Darnell as more of the offensive-minded big, whereas Chris can obviously very, very deep bag offensively, but he's probably more of your rim protector, defensive presence within the paint, right? So that's a really nice like blend of 2 big guys that Ghost Ballers had, and we've seen the success of that previously back in 2018 when Power won it. So I'm interested to see how they utilize this guy, especially with like a healthy Mike Taylor coming back, right? Or like even if Ricky Davis is in the game with these 2 dudes. And then on the back end, they get Jermaine Taylor. And Jermaine Taylor, if you look into the recent history of the league, you might not see like a lot of like profound stats when it comes to JT, right? But JT was really coming into his own in 2018, like looked really good. And when he was playing with Ball Hogs, it's a big reason why Ball Hogs picked him in the second round of 2019 to bring him back, because he was, it looked like he was going to have a really good season. And that year with Ball Hogs, think about who they grabbed in 2019. Will McDonald, who's a co-captain now, JT, who unfortunately ended up tearing his Achilles, in that first game. And then Deuce on the back end, who didn't get to play because FIBA was going to drop some sanctions based off him and his like try to stop him from playing in the Olympics at the time. Imagine what that Ball Hogs team could have been. But going back to Jermaine, like he really hasn't gotten a chance to prove himself yet. Like there's so many games that you're able to play within the big 3, and then like you only have so long of a leash, just like any professional league. But I think the leash can sometimes be a little bit shorter in a league like the big 3. So Jermaine didn't get a chance to play in 2019. Excuse me. And then in 2021, he gets an opportunity to play with Bivlac, and COVID's happening. And I think he had to sit out a game because he got COVID and never got to actually like play more than maybe 2 games at most. So based off what we've seen, it looks like he's really healthy again. He's the same JT that we're used to. The dude's a bucket. Like if he's healthy and he's in good shape and physically he's where he needs to be, like he's a bucket. If you were familiar with the 5 tournament, which is essentially a makeup of guys during the 2020 season, a makeup of big 3 players in the 2020 season playing in this tournament. He was actually on the winning team of that 5 tournament alongside Dante Green, which was really good in that tournament. I think that was when he was maybe one of his most healthiest times since coming back from his Achilles injury. But I really like the idea of going with experience here. So Ghost Ballers looking really good. Again, power rankings don't get any easier there. That being said, let's go to 4 here with Ball Hogs. We recently had Will McDonald on. They said they were going to get a big guard and they were going to get a versatile young big who was going to be able to offset Will McDonald. They did both of those things. Did it in the order I didn't expect them, but they went Stacey Davis in the first round at number 4, who's apparently like PJ Tucker-like player. They're going to bring that defensive presence, can also shoot the ball really well. He's a number 2 scorer all time at Pepperdine, number 2 rebounder. So grit and grind type of guy who can also get you a basket. Then they bring in Karan Iverson in the first pick of the second round. Apparently the 3rd cousin of Allen Iverson, but can jump out the gym. Should bring that kind of that defensive minded presence that Boggs is looking for. And I'll tell you, this dude has one of the best support systems I've ever seen. I think my Instagram has blown up more because of the support that Carl Iverson's getting than any of the other players that were drafted in this league. So should see a lot of Ball Hogs fans within the crowd this summer, especially in Dallas. But I think a lot of them will be family of Karan there. But really like what Ball Hogs did. Ball Hogs had a strategy in place. They set out and got their 2 guys, and they had 2 really high picks within these 2 rounds. They decided not to go with guys with big 3 experience, but that's okay because all their guys have experience already. You know, Barbosa and Meeks have a year under the belt. McDonald's been in the league since 2019, and they have a style which they play and that they're shooting for. And I think that's 2 guys that come in, have certain roles that they're going to fill, and I think they got who they needed. And I think Ball Hogs can be really successful at that. Obviously, a lot of the team is relying on what Barbosa and Meeks is doing. They're going to see the ball up, but they're going to want to flow and move the offense a lot while defensively trying to get enough stops as well. And I think Iverson comes into play as well as Stacey Davis. So like the picks, it's hard for me to place Ball Hogs high because they haven't been over 500 yet, but I would not be surprised if they made a run at this year. They've gotten better every year. So we'll see. A team that I think is one of the easier ones to place towards my power rankings. I think this might be my number 1 team right now, just based off preseason power rankings. That's Three's Company. They're the other team that went with 2 big 3 bets in this draft, and they picked up Julian Wright at number 5 in the first round. So the 5th pick of the first round was Julian Wright, and then they had the 2nd pick of the second round and went with Alex Scales. So again, 2 big 3 bets to add to their core. And listen, offensively, they're extremely lethal already, right? They have Mario Chalmers who can pass and facilitate. They got the potential MVP this year. It might be crazy that I'm saying this because he hasn't played a game yet, but like he is going to get his. And Michael Beasley, and then Brandon Rush, who has been a co-captain in this league for the past 2 years for Aliens, and has had some really strong games as well. So offensively, like very, very lethal. And they needed some pieces to kind of like play their role a little bit more, make up for some things they made. I think defensively they needed to get a little bit better and they needed to get a little bit more versatile. They did that with Julian Wright, a guy who can do a little bit of everything, including carry the ball in court, run the offense, could play defense really well, rebound, catch lobs, shoot. Like he could really do a little bit of it all. And they got a little bit more size as well, because I think right now Michael Beasley is their tallest guy. And then you got a guy who spread the floor now, Scales, going to shoot a lot of threes, probably some fours. But with Ghost Ballers last year, when he came in late, showed more than he can do. He can do a little bit more than that, right? He can get his own. He can get his own as well. And just another floor spacer. I think Michael Beasley's a pretty good facilitator, especially with his back to the basket. And might get doubled a couple of times this year. Find a guy like Scales in the corner. So they fit their needs really well. I know that they don't have necessarily a ton of size, or like they're not the biggest team, but rebounding guards are important. I think they have enough size, and I think this is the best team going into the 2022 season. I really do. We'll see where they end up at the end of the year, but I think if all things go well and they're healthy, this is going to be the best team. I'm excited that they brought in another Kansas guy. I'm surprised. I'm excited they brought in my boy Scales as well. I was going to say something backwards, but I'm excited they brought in Alex. Guy's been working really hard, had a really good combine as well, and guy's proven himself in this league to go undrafted last year and then to get an opportunity, play really well, and then have a really good offseason and combine and get drafted, have the respect of the league. Kudos to you, bro. That's what's up. At number 6, Triplets, they had the 6th pick of the first round, and then they had the 7th pick of the second round, and their top 6 pick was questioned a little bit on our live stream. They needed the big really bad. They had the Pargo brothers as their co-captains, along with the 2-time MVP Joe Johnson. They needed the big, and they went with Ryan Hollins as their first pick, and then they went with Alonzo G in the second round, who was a first round pick last year. This one we didn't talk too much about. It didn't seem like anyone was too impressed with the pick or even worried about the idea of them getting Ryan Hollins to add to this squad. That's, been one of the best teams in the league the past couple of years. A lot of that being with Joe. They lose Al Jefferson, so they definitely need a big, but they lost two versatile wings, I think, in Allen Anderson and Jamario Moon. Thought for a second they'd run it back, but they did fall off a little bit last year at the end of the year, losing the #1 seed, losing in the first round of the playoffs. And maybe they just wanted to switch things up. Things were not working well. Whenever they lost to killer threes, I think like week 7, things like changed. Like things just didn't look as good. And we saw that. So they went with Ryan Hollins, an experienced Big 3 vet. He's played for killer threes, Aliens, Threes Company a little bit last year. A lob threat, a rim protector. I think the one thing for Ryan Hollins that I don't love since he's been in the league, and maybe why I questioned the pick as well as everybody else, and those guys actually play on the court, so maybe they see a little bit more. A lot of foul trouble, which, within the Big 3, if you get 3 fouls in the first half, you have to sit. But also too, not necessarily a guy, you don't really need him to get you a basket necessarily, but not necessarily a guy that you're going to be able to rely on to get you a basket down low, like all the time. Like I'm sure you can do it sometimes. But again, like with the thing with triplets, like they didn't really play Al Jefferson like a ton. They didn't rely on him a lot. I think they just needed him at times, and maybe that's what they just want with Ryan Hollins. I think just for that pick too, like it's kind of weird that they went with a big top 6, but that's just me. I'm kind of like looking at giving this grade and thinking, why did I give the rest of the team's grades here? I'm going to give the Ryan Hollins pick like a C-. I'm not kind of, I'll give the Ryan Hollins pick a C-, but then they got Alonzo G too. So I'll give the triplets a C. Alonzo G's someone that was highly regarded in the second round, someone that was going to go at some point. Probably the only constant of Bivouac last year, and coming off a really good season playing overseas. And I actually like the fit a lot for Alonzo G, another versatile wing guy that's going to score, play defense for you. Again, one of the only guys who was really played almost every game for Bivouac and contributed to at least helping them try to contend for wins. So I'll give the triplets a C. Let's see. The other teams, I'm going to give Power. I think I'm going to give Power a C+. I was a little surprised I went with Glenn Rice in the first, and then picking TJ Klein. I don't really know how. I guess I've never seen TJ Klein play personally. It seems like more of a family tie because who's not going to pick their son, but at the same time too, I don't know. Glenn Rice Jr.'s highlights are pretty good. I'll give it a B-. The Aliens pick with Deshawn Stephens and Adam Drexler, I'm going to give it a B+. Ghost Ballers, A draft, I think. Stacey Davis and Karan Iverson to Ballhoff, I'm going to give it B+. And then I really like Threes Company draft too. I think I'm going to give them I'm going to give them A because I picked Big 3 vets, fit what they need. I would give them an A+ if maybe they got a little bit more size here, but I think they got what they need. I'm just going to give them a standard A. You pass with flying colors, right? But you didn't necessarily perfect the draft, I guess, or you didn't get 100 out of 100. I'll spell it like that. Okay, moving on to Tri-State. Tri-State had the 7th pick in the first round and the 6th pick in the second round. And honestly, this might be a team I give an A+. I really like their picks. So in the first round, they go with DeJuan Summers with the 7th pick, who another highly regarded newcomer to the Big 3. And then in the second round, they go with Garland Green, who's going to be selected by Bivouacs, with his brother being Gerald Green. And they get him at pick 6 in round 2. I really like both of these picks here for Tri-State. They got a little bit more size. Look, they're trying to compensate for the loss of Earl Clark, who was promoted to co-captain for Trilogy. They get DeJuan Summers, who's 6'8", brings a little bit more size. Apparently he's a bucket, former NBA player, picked in the second round of the NBA draft. And I think bringing him in alongside Larry Sanders and Jason Richardson and Justin Dittman, which, by the way, it is confirmed those are the three captains as we suspected. Nate Robinson won't be back. I really like the fit there. And then to add Garland Green, who's very, like, based on what I've seen, very similar game to Gerald Green. I've made the hot take he might be a better dunker than Gerald Green. Had a really strong career overseas. Maybe he doesn't shoot the tray ball as well as Gerald does. Or maybe I just haven't seen enough like highlights of it, like, or games of him doing that. But another guy that can create his own, looks strong on both ends of the floor. I really like the offensive firepower they added for Tri-State. I'm gonna give it an A-. You're not gonna be able to compensate for Earl Clark, but doing a decent job here. Also have to make up for some other key members of that team as well. I'm like, they're escaping my name. Obviously, Nate Robinson being one of them. Who is escaping me right now? Justin Dittman, Larry Sanders, Jason Richardson, Nate Robinson. Someone is missing from me. I'll come back to that one, but we're not going to spend the whole time on it here. Let's go to the 8th pick, and that was Bivouac. And Bivouac had the 8th pick of the second round and the 9th pick, the 9th pick of the second round and the 8th pick of the first round. And they added some size as well. They go with Jeff Ayers in the first round, and they go with Corey Brewer in the second round. I got to figure out this Tri-State thing before I can continue on. Oh, I'm talking about Earl Clark. I'm acting like that's who I was talking. That's who was missing from there. So yeah, you're trying to compensate for Nate Robinson, Earl Clark, Tri-State. I think they did a pretty good job. All right, let's move on. Now we can officially move on. And Bivouac goes with Jeff Ayers and Corey Brewer. Defensive minded mindset going into it. Obviously, their new head coach is Gary Payton. They got Gerald Green, Will Bynum returning. They'll probably be, 75% of the scoring load. They got Ike Diogu, who captain of the Nigerian basketball team. He's pretty good defensively, apparently, but also like a really strong offensively too. Big body guy. So you added him as your other co-captain. Then you add another defensive big and Jeff Ayers, and then Corey Brewer, versatile wing. Can't get any more defensive minded than that. Defense turns into offense, and I don't know. Maybe I'm hurt with Bivouac because Bivouac, we just raved about him so much last year. Going to the Bahamas for sure, and then falling flat, having so many injuries and issues throughout the season. Tough to hold them to a high standard again. I am going to give this an A. No, I'm going to give it a B+, excuse me, for Bivouac in their draft. I think I would have liked to see them add a little bit more offensively, but also that's because I don't watch a ton of Ike Diogu's games. I know they have a lot with Gerald Green and Will Bynum. I think I would like to see a little bit more offensive minded within these two picks, but honestly, Corey Brewer could be that. A guy who scored 50 points in an NBA game, so could be that. I'm still going to give it a B+, because I don't know what to expect from Corey Brewer. He's been a player development coach with the Pelicans, so he's probably been playing a little bit. And then Jeff Ayers, who's been playing over Japan. We'll see how he factors into the lineup as well. But I like the situation. Again, a lot of teams looking really good. Let's go to the Killer Threes, who had the 9th pick of the first round and the 8th pick of the second round. A lot of these teams had similar picks within each round, which is kind of weird because these are all lottery-based rounds here. But they go with Dominique Johnson in the first round and KJ McDaniels within the second round. Kind of an interesting point here because, we had Mike Taylor on for Jermaine Taylor pick. He was kind of in and out for the Darnell Jackson pick, but we had Dante tell us both picks before they actually happened for Killer Threes. And interesting points for both of these. If you haven't checked out the live stream, you should, but Dante said that Dominique Johnson's, in his words, going to be the rookie of the year. It's their sleeper. Can't believe it. Nobody got him. Apparently he was going to go top 5, but he ended up falling. Some things occurred, and Dominique Johnson, apparently a really good shooter, really versatile guy, can defend well. He's just a bucket, like going to be really good. So Dante Green says he's going to be rookie of the year. Obviously, he's a little biased, but a guy that's been playing overseas, came back, did really well at the combine, almost too well in their eyes because they wanted to select him. And they got him with the 9th pick. So someone I'm keeping my eye on for sure. And then the other interesting part was in the second round, they were going to take Alonzo G, the pick before. He ended up getting taken. So they ended up going with KJ McDaniels, kind of a similar player there, a guy that's defensively can be really good. Some accolades in college for being a strong defensive player, high flyer, can really get up there and throw it down. Had some NBA experience. Interesting point here is that after the pick was made, we brought up Jordan Crawford and they're like, oh, he's like, oh, we forgot about him. We were talking about getting him. So not saying that KJ McDaniels wasn't in consideration or that they don't like that they picked KJ McDaniels, but just wondering if they would have remembered that, like what their decision might have been. They still might have gone with KJ, but and I still think KJ McDaniels can be a really good player in this league. Apparently he had a pretty good combine as well for enough people to want to take a chance on him. And guy I heard rumblings about too here toward the end of the second round. So KJ McDaniels and Dominique Johnson here with the killer threes. Because they forgot about who they were originally going to select, it's hard for me to give him an A. But, and see, this is a lot of this contingent off, like, is Dominique Johnson really going to be the rookie of the year? Like, it's hard for me not to trust the players here. I'm going to give it a solid B. I think they fit needs. They need to have a versatile team. They had the luxury of already having their bigs, with Dante being like 6'10", 6'11", Josh Powell being around that same size as well. They really just need to bring some versatility and some defensive guys that were going to fit into the culture here, what they were trying to do. And that's trying to get back to a championship. Coming off strong into the season, we'll see what they can do. 3 more teams here. We got at 10, we got enemies. They took Sek Henry with the last pick of the first round, and then Keith Benson with the 3rd pick in the second round. Guys that I'm not too familiar with. Apparently Sek Henry's, made a big presence in LA. Really good player. A 6'4" guy who can go get his own. Pretty good shooter as well. Lefty. So excited to see what he can bring to the table. And then Keith Benson, a late addition to the draft pool, bring that defensive presence. I think he's going to kind of offset Isaiah Austin's in a little bit, even though Isaiah can be a really good rim protector as well. I think Keith Benson's going to be more of the defensive focus, when they bring him in, whereas Isaiah is obviously going to be one of your main scoring loads. Enemies, kind of looking tough. I hope Nick Young's a little bit more prepared this year, but you're bringing back Elijah Stewart, who just won an MVP over there in Romania. And you're bringing back Isaiah Austin, who had a really good season in the Big Three, and one of the bigger mismatches within the league. Bringing in these two guys, and they drafted a lot better for like kind of what their fits and needs are this year. Where I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like Nick Young was kind of all over the place last year. Came in because Gil asked him to, didn't know what to expect, maybe not necessarily prepared. And this year could be a little bit more prepared. So excited to see what they do. I'm going to give this one a question mark because I don't know enough about the players here to actually grade them. But it seems like, 2 guys that they were pretty high on and excited about and have been like chat with pretty early on. So we'll see what they bring to enemies. I'm excited. Another LA connection there. I know that a lot of the guys in enemies have LA connections, so we'll see what they can bring to the table. And then the 2 teams that only had a 2nd round pick were Trilogy and then 3-Headed Monsters. Trilogy brought back former co-captain David Hawkins, another Big 3 veteran. I love the Hawk, so it's hard for me not to give this one an A. I'm going to give it an A- because, I don't really know what kind of. From what I've heard, David Hawkins is in really good shape. Last year, he was coming back from an injury. He came on a little bit late with Three's Company and had some decent spurts where he was good, but he wasn't the David Hawkins I remember that was like an MVP candidate. but that being said, he was a former MVP candidate, obviously a little bit older now, but they bring in a veteran presence to their championship ways, their championship team already, and a guy that can do a little bit of everything. Really good facilitator, can score for you. I really like the pick by David Hawkins, so I'm going to give it an A-. And I think Trilogy is probably one of my top 4 playoff teams as well right now. Might be the number 2 team here. So Three's Company and Trilogy, that might be the start of my power rankings there. And then the other team that only had a second round pick was Three-Headed Monsters, who obviously they added Jonathan Simmons late in the night, but they have to replace Reggie Evans and get a little bit more size. They're a pretty small team right now outside. Well, I guess up to this point, they have Rashard Lewis, who's obviously a bigger guy. They bring back Kevin Murphy, who's co-rookie of the year. I can't believe I haven't even mentioned him yet. And then Jonathan Simmons. So that's an interesting 1-2 punch there. They add some size. They go with Ab Indo or AB Indo. I feel like it's Ab Indo because, right, wouldn't it have like periods in between the A and B? That's besides the point. Ab Indo, who played a little bit for Power last year, a big man as well. Thought he played pretty decent for Power. I feel like he was still kind of adjusting, and he didn't get he needed a little bit of a longer leash, but I think he had some good spurts. Obviously he had 2 tough assignments coming in. I think their first game was against enemy. So his first job was like, hey, you're gonna have to go cover Isaiah Austin. And then week 2, they go out and they play Triplets. And obviously you got Joe Johnson, Al Jefferson, all those guys. So 2 tough assignments, but I think during the times he was in, he played pretty well. I don't know if Three-Headed Monsters more so we're kind of like, oh, who do we go with, with the last pick, and we really need some size here, or kind of what their thought process was. They probably weren't even thinking about drafting. Now they're thinking about drafting for this position, and now they're like, oh, shoot, maybe we should have done our due diligence. I don't know. I'm going to give it a B- because I think there were some players. I think I would have just probably gone best available here. And then when the time came, if you needed to add some size later, or the guy wasn't working out for you, you could do so. But they also to address the need. And I think that's what they needed to do here, especially losing Reggie Evans. So give it a B-. We'll see how it plays out here. That's kind of the makeup of the draft. If you missed it, there you have it. Those are your teams. Wasn't expecting to give grades, but why not? Let's grades. I think from my perspective, to take for what it's worth, but grades are always fun, and a lot of guys in this draft pool that are undrafted still. A lot of guys that went undrafted that are really surprising. A lot of Big 3 vets. Obviously, we didn't see Andre Owens drafted for the first time in Big 3 history. Saw Ty Lawson, who's not a Big 3 vet, but he wasn't drafted. Thought we were going to see Festus Ezeli. That wasn't the case. Ball Hogs did not take him. They wanted a even younger big, so they went with Iverson. No tryout players, so still no tryout player that's ever been drafted. We didn't see Jordan Crawford go, who I mentioned a little bit earlier. No Hezzy God. Pretty interesting. We didn't see Derek Byers or Al Thornton go, which they're maybe not the most prominent names or names you'd expect here. It's like, oh, why is that such a surprise to go undrafted? Well, they're 2 guys that have played in every year of the Big 3, just like Andre Owens. So I think there's always a chance that people could take a flyer on. No one took Craig Smith. Like, that was nuts. We had him on the stream expecting to get a reaction of when he was drafted, his thoughts around it, and never got the call. Tough season last year for him, but the year before, top 5 in scoring. He's back and better and in great health. I think he's a guy that's going to get picked up early. Nomo Charlo, who was a really good defensively. I thought more guys were going to be defensively focused. So I thought like guys like Mo Charlo, Mikael Gladness, Briante Weber could go. They did not. Heard a lot about Pooh Jeter potentially getting the spot. He didn't go, but he also was going to the combine. Had a really good season with McKnight though. So Quincy Miller, another one. I mean, the list goes on and on. I'm over here like reading the draft left off. Like a lot of guys that were left off that were very surprising. Oh, I can't even. My guy Tony Criswell, who had 19 points and 15 rebounds in his only game in the Big 3, thought he'd get an opportunity. Definitely, I heard a couple teams talk about how he was in consideration. Just need more spots, and hopefully, this leads to more recognition of the league. The team's able to generate more revenue and ultimately have another expansion of 4 more teams so we can get more guys, because this league's only going to continue to grow. But that being said, there are my draft grades. There's a recap of the draft. Again, you can recap our whole live stream and reaction analysis, a little bit more in-depth analysis from some of the players that were on the live stream. And that's going to be on our YouTube page here. And then also too, my power rankings. They're going to come out soon, but we know 1 and 2 right now. Three's Company at 1 and Trilogy is going to be at 2. 2 could change. 1's not changing. 1's going to be Three's Company. It's been that way since I got Michael Beasley. Adding the pieces they did in the draft only solidifies that even more. That's going to do it for this half of the episode. Appreciate everyone who tuned in. If you liked what you heard, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast at, or any platform you listen to your podcast at. If you're on YouTube, make sure you're subscribing, hitting that notification bell, liking the video. That's always greatly appreciated as well. And I appreciate the guys over at Dash Radio and Nothing But That channel. All that being said, I mentioned we have an interview on the back end with number 2 pick of the 2022 BIG3 draft, Deshawn Stephens, who went to Aliens. So thanks for everyone's time. And let's get to our interview with Deshawn. Cool. All right. On today's episode, we're welcoming on the number 2 pick of the 2022 BIG3 draft and one of the newest additions to a revamped Alien squad, Deshawn Stephens. Like I said before, I appreciate you taking the time today. I know you're doing a lot. You're about to head back home, so I appreciate it.
No problem, man. Appreciate you for having me.
Absolutely. Let's start here. Obviously, I want to talk a lot about BIG3, kind of your thoughts going into the season, where you were and what you were doing on draft night. But I kind of want to start with like your pro career briefly, kind of lay the foundation. So you went undrafted in 2013 to the NBA. Today, it almost seems like everybody just tries to go straight to the G League, right? In hopes of like catching on with some team or trying to get some kind of 2-way or midseason call up. But in 2013, I think that was a little bit different, right? The G League wasn't necessarily what it was today. Like it's made a lot of strides in terms of where it's at. So when you decided to start your pro career overseas, like what went into that decision? What was kind of the landscape during that time when you came out?
It was, like you said before, it was definitely a different time. So it was a little weird for me because I actually had no idea like how overseas basketball was. It honestly wasn't even an option to me. I was oblivious to it. But when I got done with my senior season, and I started talking to like a couple of agents and stuff, and figuring out what I was going to do after. That's when we started talking about the overseas life. And I liked the idea of the G League the D League at the time. Mm-hmm. But from the only thing I knew was that the money wasn't the same as it would be being overseas. Mm-hmm. So, broke kid in college, I was like, nah, I'm gonna go get the bag first. So
I feel that.
I just went straight to overseas, tried to make as much money as I can. And that's pretty much how it started. I mean, if a lot of times I look back, I'm like, man, maybe I should have tried the D League route like right away. Mm-hmm. I think it's always better to do that early in your career, and then overseas is always going to be here. But it's definitely something that I think about on occasion.
Yeah, it's weird because we actually had this discussion. We had a live stream, and I was on with a few of the players, as well as one of the guys who works for the G League. We were kind of having that discussion. It's so hard to like balance that and know how long you should stay, because some guys stay like forever, right? But then there's also like the idea where you're not making a lot of money and you got to get your bread at some point, right? Because you're doing this for a living. Yeah, you're doing this for a living. Like this is your everyday job. So I'm sure it's like super enticing coming out of college, like you said, and just being like, oh, there's that much money on the table. Like, yeah, let's just start the career overseas. And you've had a really successful career playing overseas. You're finishing up your season there in Bosnia. You just won the Bosnian Cup with your team. If you could, in one word, describe your career, playing overseas so far, what would that word be?
in one word.
It can be a hyphenated word if it's necessary.
Wow. Probably just growth. I think every country I've played in, every team I played on, I've grown into a different player, and I've taken a piece of something from every team, in every different aspects. Most countries, they all have a different style of playing basketball, which is something that I enjoy about playing overseas. So it's really cool to take other different styles of basketballs and adapt them to my game and figure out how I can use them, how I can be better. And so growth is probably it. I've grown a lot over the years.
Man, that's a great perspective to have, I think. And it's so interesting because you're saying, like, maybe you look back on starting in the D League or G League and starting stateside, but ultimately, like, what you've done over your pro career and how you've grown as a player has led you to the point where now this new league has started in the BIG3, and you're getting a chance to come back and play stateside and still, make a lot more money than you would in the G League playing in the summertime. Let's start first with how you heard about the BIG3. I feel like I saw your name in the draft pool last year, but I don't know if you attended the combine or anything. And sometimes, like, when people don't see players, they're like, how's he look? Or, who is that sometimes? But, how'd you hear about the league and, why this year in terms of, like, trying to have an opportunity to play?
Well, I mean, I'm born and raised in LA, so BIG3 was popular.
Yeah.
It was easy to catch on. Everybody knows what Ice Cube is doing, man. I've been a fan since I was a kid, so it's always something that I've seen. The first couple seasons I just watched, I was like, it's really exciting. Never really thought about playing in it until maybe 2 seasons ago. Okay. That's the first time I put my name in the draft. But Thomas Scott actually messaged me about it and thought that I should put my name in. And I said, yeah, let me give it a shot. Definitely getting a chance to play back at home and in front of friends and family. Again, it's always an option or a plus, especially over the summertime. But I entered my name probably the last 2 seasons, but of course I'm always overseas, so I always miss the combine and all the other little workouts, the tryouts and stuff like that. So I never really get a chance to be seen. So I was very fortunate this season, and I actually had a couple guys that I was talking to about getting picked up, and Dusan is actually Serbian, so yeah, he follows the league here, the ABA league that we play in, and I guess that's how he's seeing me. I'm not really 100% positive on that, but I believe that's how he's seeing me, and he figured that I would help out with the team, and he contacted me, and we took off from there.
That's dope. Yeah, I was wondering that too, and maybe we can get into more detail about that. But it's pretty interesting. I think for Dusan, he might have heard some buzz around some other captains and stuff, because we had Dante Green from Killer Threes on the live stream. He said your boys with Frank Nitti. And when you went at number 2, he was like, damn. He was like, that was going to be our pick. I was like, I don't know if you're going to get him at number 9, bro. Like, if he went that high, there's no way you're going to get him at number 9. But I guess, like, kind of talk to me a little bit about, like, draft night. Like, what are you thinking? At this point, are you feeling pretty confident that you're going to go, or, like, is it one of those things where you're just like, I'll just wait until after the draft to kind of hear about it? Because it is, I guess it is late for you over there, so you're probably already sleeping at that point.
I actually stayed up to watch it because
okay.
I felt like it was going to be exciting, so I decided to stay up and watch it. But I had a great feeling about it, but again, you never know what can happen in the draft night. Anybody can go anywhere, and it was very exciting. I actually didn't think I would go that high. I figured it would be like a second round thing, especially with me being not seen and stuff like that. But it was a great feeling. It was overwhelming seeing Ice Cube just say my name, period. being a fan from a child, man, it's like that's LA. That's my home. So it was definitely a great feeling and a great experience. I wish I would have been home in the States to experience it, but you know how it goes.
Yeah, especially like I told you, I lived overseas for a little bit, and I used to watch I used to have to watch all the NBA playoffs at 2 or 3 in the morning, and I'd just be passing out to them, and then wake up and I'm like, oh shoot, I missed a really good game. Luckily this year it's most of them are blowouts, so you're not missing too much, or can catch them early. But yeah, that's cool. So how do you feel being overseas? How do you feel you solidified yourself as a just as even a contender to go in the draft? Because you talk about oh, I might have dropped to the second round. There's 22 picks in this draft, out of 100 plus people. So you're still a premier pick, whether you're number 22 or number 2, right? So how do you feel you solidified yourself this year?
Man, to hear you put it in that way, it's a little different, but yeah, it's an amazing feeling. I think I hope it doesn't put too much of a target on my back or anything like that. But I'm a competitor, man. I'm a compete. I play basketball. This is what I do for a living. So it's nothing new to me. It's not different. I'm not looking at it any type of way oh, I'm not prepared or I ain't ducking no smoke. So
Thanks.
I'm ready. I'm ready for the season. It should be exciting. I'm excited to see how the 3-on-3 basketball is going to be. I've been playing 5-on-5 my whole life. Obviously 3-on-3 in the parks and stuff like that. But it's going to be a different type of basketball, and I'm excited to see, especially with the team I'm on with Deshawn and the way that he wants to run things, kind of like a European style bringing to American, which is it's easy for me. I can play both ways, so I feel like it's going to be a different vibe. It's going to be very exciting. I've been told before that I'm an exciting player to watch. So hopefully we bring that same vibe to the BIG3.
Man, that's a perfect segue actually into what I was thinking as well. First off, the good thing about being number 2 is usually the target is on the back of the number 1 pick. I felt like everyone went at Isaiah last year because he was the number 1 pick, and they kept saying that at games and stuff. So it might be the same thing with Glenn this year. But at the same time too, like you said, you play a lot of European ball, and you're coming into a team where it's gonna definitely bring that European flair. First and foremost, have you had a chance to, I guess, watch more clips or footage of Deshawn and get a chance to even talk to these guys like Deshawn and Carlos as well as Thomas?
Yeah, for sure. Deshawn is introduced all of us. We've all
That's cool.
Spoke at least on the phone. The same with Coach Mahorn. So
is it weird to say that, Coach Mahorn?
It's crazy.
Okay, continue. My bad.
Very insane. But yeah, it's we vibe already. It's easy. I mean, let alone it's just been through text or voice messages and stuff like that. I'm excited to see us actually get together and get on the floor and kind of get some motion. But the way he plays, I watched a lot of his videos. It's crazy because a lot of my teammates here are they know of him. He's a big name here in the Balkan area. So they're probably more excited than I am to play with him. But yeah, I got to watch his highlights. I got to watch the way he plays. It's very easy. I've played with multiple players like that, so it's going to be an easy adjustment, and I'm just excited to see what the chemistry does.
Yeah, definitely. I think Thomas and Carlos bring an interesting piece to it, right? Because Thomas and Deshawn, they won 35 games in a row at one point together, is what I read, 3 or 4 FIBA world titles. Carlos is an Olympic gold medalist in this 3-on-3. And he's still 28 years old. It's weird because we saw Deshawn make his debut last year. He came over straight from the Olympics. I think there was a little bit of an adjustment period, physically, which I think is why they brought you in, right? Like not only for versatility and size, but like physically you'll be able to match with most of the players within here. But yeah, like I think it's going to be like a really interesting team. Like you're definitely going to have that European flair. Like I feel like you're going to mesh really well with them too. And then you bring in Adam Drexler as well, the commissioner's son. Like, what are your expectations for year one?
Nuts. It's sorry, man. It's crazy sometimes just hearing all the name drops. It's like, wow.
There's a lot of like family ties for sure this year.
Man, we're all in the same building. It's love. It's definitely gonna be love to be a part of the BIG3. But expectations for this year, I mean, at the end of the day, I wouldn't be a basketball player if I didn't say championship. So
100%.
I mean, obviously we wanna go as far as we can and be the best in the league if possible. But I think me personally, my expectation is just to bring as much energy, play as hard as I can, get as involved with my teammates as much as I can, and just try and help them transition to whatever we need to transition to. Definitely play defense. I'm a defense guy and I love to play defense. So I want to be a threat. And I just want us to get as far as we can.
Yeah, that's gonna be big time. I think too, I mean, for me personally, what I watch is like Aliens, the team you're on, Enemies, Bivouac, and Ball Hogs, teams that haven't made the playoffs yet. 3 of them are expansion teams, right? So they've only been around for a couple seasons. One team's been around since inception and gone through the struggles. But like I was thinking about it really like for the past couple of days. I'm like, damn, if I were to put like a power rankings together, like who would I put at the bottom? Like no team is really like got like a weakness to their game. Like every team seems pretty good on paper. Like have you had a chance to like kind of look at the rosters and reflect and, you know,
oh yeah, for sure.
Are there any teams that like stand out to you that you're like, oh man, like definitely trying to lock them down because they're gonna be good.
I watched the entire draft. So I was up to like 4 or 5 in the morning. I watched the entire draft. I actually got a handful of friends that got drafted, so I'm excited I'm excited to play against them. And you know, I mean, we already do it overseas, so it's cool to be back on soil and get into it. But and a lot of other guys, you know, I've played against in the Drew League and stuff like that. So yeah, there's some. I definitely have my eyes on the Enemies. That's tough. Nick put a solid squad together for that one. Sec is a ridiculous scorer. That's gonna be crazy. Who else was I thinking of? The Tri-State's gonna be tough. JD's my guy. So is Garland. Garland's a great pick for them. And trying to go on blank right now.
Yeah. Who else tried to say that? Oh, DeJuan Summers.
Yes. DeJuan Summers. They're gonna be a tough team to deal with. What team is Beasley on?
Three's Company with Rio and the Kansas boys over there, Rio, Rush, and that'll be a fun one for you, right? Like that's the challenge you want, right? Yeah, no doubt.
But like I said, I'm excited for every matchup. So it's gonna be exciting, man. This is gonna be exciting basketball for sure.
Yeah, and you got a lot of experience on your team for sure in the 3-on-3 space there. Like I know FIBA's a little bit different because I think most of it's like they score, you grab the rebound, go behind the 3-point line, and then like you're just back in action again. But like, I mean,
that's probably going to be the toughest part for me is adjusting to the actual 3-on-3. I mean, like I said, I played it at parts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because like the actual rules, I kind of gotta dial in for that.
For sure. But, like shot clock and just like I mean spacing and like the actual game, I think you'll be fine with. But I think like shot clock and stuff is like some stuff that you'll get adjusted to fairly quickly, I'm sure. Basketball is obviously the main point of playing in the league, but there's a bunch of different reasons why I think people love playing in the league as well. Just like, obviously you've mentioned like playing back in the States is going to be cool. But I think like there's a lot of camaraderie in the league. Are there any things that you're looking forward to just like off the court within the league?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, I got a handful of friends that are participating in BIG3. So it's just going to be cool to see everybody get to travel around. You know, we get to play in Chicago and 80% in Dallas. So,
Yeah.
So it's gonna be exciting to just, you know, get out and enjoy the summer. You know, outside of California, I get to leave California a little bit, but it'll be exciting. I believe my wife's gonna come to a couple games, so
that's cool.
It's a cool experience for her to get to see. And I'm not sure if any other family come out, maybe, but yeah, it should be exciting. It should be definitely exciting. I'm also excited to meet all the coaches. Man, bro,
wow.
just to bump elbows with everybody, man. This is gonna be quite the experience. Definitely gotta shake hands with Ice Cube. That's for sure.
Facts.
Yes.
That would be cool, no doubt. For those unfamiliar with your game, you've kind of touched on it a little bit throughout, but for those unfamiliar with their game, and we've gotten a lot of new listeners as of late because of these teams kind of being like fractioned into their own separate like entities, essentially with new owners and stuff, and the NFT craze going on. How would you kind of describe your play? Yeah, you mentioned defense is one of the things you love most, but how would you describe yourself as a player?
I think as a player, I mean, obviously, I believe I can do everything. I think I'm a Swiss Army knife to keep it
okay.
But the type of player I am, I'm kind of I don't want to say system player exactly, but I do what is needed for the team. So even if I believe that I can shoot threes, if we got two other guys shooting the threes and we need somebody getting the boards, I'm going to get the boards. I'm not worried about the threes. You feel me? Yeah. So I'm definitely an energy guy, very athletic, lob threat, dunk threat. I love playing defense. I communicate. I'm loud all the time on the floor. And I think it's just big energy. Try and be an energy giver. When I was in college, Coach Fisher told me, he pulled me to the side one day. I'll never forget it. It was like it's probably like our second game into when I first got to school. And he kind of just pulled me to the side and he was like, when you go on the floor, you're either an energy giver or an energy taker. So make sure you're always on the giving side. And ever since then, I took that and I ran with it. So whenever I'm on the floor, I want to be the guy that gives energy to everybody else on the floor. No matter what I do, if it's diving on the floor, going to get an offensive rebound and, you know, doing everything, speaking, being verbal, I just want to be the guy that feeds energy to everybody else.
Man, that's a dope motto. That might apply to more than just the stuff on the court, honestly. That might apply to like just life lessons. I gotta think about that a little bit more. All right, bro. Well, appreciate the time. Obviously, you kind of mentioned it. Excuse me. Excuse me. Damn. I'm going through the allergy season, or I'm just getting choked up talking to you. Either one. All right, bro. You know, appreciate the time. Obviously, you said you're going to spend a lot of time in Dallas. So the goal being got to get to Atlanta and Miami, because that means you're in the playoffs. And that means you're in the championship. And then as well, too, get to the Bahamas, because that means you're an all-star. So best of luck to you this summer. Last thing I want to do is open the floor to you. You know, obviously did a little research about you, but it looks like you have a clothing line. But anything you have going on or want to plug here, I want to give you the floor for maybe our listeners to be able to go and check out.
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely partnered up with Boosted. I believe that's their Instagram handle. I don't know exactly, but I'm partnered with Boosted, and I just have a couple drops coming soon, but not too much. It's just something I like to do on the side. It's very fun. It's very to the point. It's just something that mainly like catchphrases that I live by, like don't settle and stuff like that. But Yeah, it's cool. Definitely. My Instagram is obviously D Stephens, DESTEPHENS 23. And yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm ready. I'm ready for the big three, ready to get back home, ready to get to it. And I think it's gonna be an exciting season.
Yeah, 100%. Congrats again on being drafted. And yeah, best of luck to you. Excited to see you play. Excited to see how you work with aliens. And let's get you guys to the playoffs for the first time.
Yes, sir. Let's do it, man. Appreciate you. Thank you for
Yes,
having me.
sir. Yes, sir. All right, that was our interview with Deshawn Stephens. Just want to say a big thank you to him as he's wrapping up his season in Bosnia. Just want to say thank you to him because really dope interview. One, really cool to hear his perspective on his thoughts around the league, his draft night experience, and just his, kind of the surrealness he's having and the excitement he's having. Sounds like he's excited to get to work. Tucson did his homework on him and I guess saw him play over in Europe, and he added him with the number 2 pick. So excited to see what he brings to the table and what Aliens does this season. All in all, should be very exciting. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. Again, you can follow the show at Fourth Man Pod on all your social media platforms. YouTube.com/Fourth Man Pods, where you can find our visual versions of the show. And thanks to the guys at Dash Radio and the Nothing But Net channel for providing us with a platform every Monday and Saturday. Thanks to everyone tuned in once again, and we'll see you guys next time.